is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. We'd like to thank you for participating in this webinar this morning. Just to let you know, it is being recorded and it will be posted on the Northern Networks website shortly. Throughout the webinar, if you use the chat box to type in your questions, we will try to answer them as we go. If we happen to miss it, we will have a little bit of a question session at the end. Also, please take a few moments at the end to answer the evaluation questions. They will automatically pop up when you go to exit the webinar. So without any further delay, I will hand it over to our presenter, Wendy Olson.
Thank you, Jolene. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Task-Based Assessment, Jeremiah, a case study from entry to exit. This webinar is brought to you today by the three North networks, Literacy Network Northeast, Literacy Northwest, the Mid-North Network, and they are part of the Learning Networks of Ontario, and of course our funders, MTCU, Employment Ontario Network. Okay. Welcome, as Jolene said. My name is Wendy Olson. I'd like to just take 1 second before we move forward and thank Jolene for her technical assistance today, and Anne-Marie Weslowski from Literacy Northwest for inviting me to deliver this final webinar. This webinar is the 6th webinar of a series of webinar where we previously took a look at the 5 components of task-based assessment. We're going to take a look today back at the intake and the 3 components of assessment. As Jolene said, all the webinars are recorded and can be accessed via the Northern Networks website. Our goals for today is I'd like to take a look at intake and initial, ongoing, and exit assessment, take a look at training plan development, some discussion and tips around service coordination, and then other tips and resources that I hope will help support you out there in the work that you're doing. Okay. These webinars are based on a tool that the ministry gave us a few years back. It's called the Appendix 2. It's an agency self-assessment tool for implementing the Ontario Adult Literacy Curriculum Framework. And task-based assessment is the 4th pillar in that self-assessment tool. Basically, agencies should have an overall assessment strategy, demonstrates agency capacity to select and use appropriate task-based and other than task-based tools and methods for initial, ongoing, and exit assessments that are directly related to the learner's goals. Okay, and that's going to be our theme throughout the whole webinar, is activities and tasks that are directly related to the learner's goals. Previously, in other webinars, we started with striking the right balance, understanding the difference between task-based and skills-based assessment. We talked about and reviewed the FAIR assessment principles, the 3 components of assessment, the variety of approaches and methods, the adult learning principles, and of course, task-based versus skill-based. In part 2, the right choice, we were looking at choosing assessment tools and methods, and this is where we took a look at the 5 steps to goal-directed assessment leading to the development of a learner plan. In part 3, measuring progress, choosing, oh, there's an error there, I'm so sorry. It's measuring progress. Okay. Here we're looking at assessment and tasks that are relevant to what's expected once they leave the program. Okay, what are they going to be doing when they leave the program? We are transitional programming and task-based assessment that goes hand in hand. In part 4, we looked at tracking progress, learner goals, and goal completion. And again, the learner plan is one of the best tools for tracking learner progress. And we took a look at some other tools to help support practitioners in file management. And now here we are today with task-based assessment, a case study from entry to exit. Oh, and I missed putting the pieces together where we looked at an overall assessment strategy. I apologize. Getting ahead of myself a little bit here. Okay. There's 4 key foundation documents that these webinars are based on that were provided to us when we initially started going through the whole transition. The curriculum framework conceptual foundation document, foundations of transition-oriented programming, foundations of assessment, and the foundation of learning materials. Other key documents that the ministry provided to us and that are used along as well in these webinars are task-based programming for practitioners, the curriculum framework itself, and the goal path descriptors. I put this visual up because I think it's very interesting to see how the supporting documents and the other documents that the ministry has given us line up with the 5 core services and how the 5 core services transition in to the 5 goal paths. So I've put the link there to this diagram, and I've also included a link to some of the other key foundational documents and in that that are up on EOPG. Okay. So without further ado, I'd like to jump right into Jeremiah. Now, we've used Jeremiah as an example in previous webinars as a bit of a case study. We've changed Jeremiah's circumstances up a little bit to be more realistic into what's actually coming in to the program at this moment. Up on the far corner, you're going to see a number 1. And you're going to see numbers 1 through to 5 throughout the rest of the webinar. And that is in reference to goal-directed steps, a goal-directed assessment and the steps that we take. A lot of this stuff actually comes naturally to us as practitioners. We're doing it as we go along. The goal-directed process just breaks it out into steps for us. That actually can be found in the Practitioner's Guide to Task-Based Programming starting on page 8. So we're going to take a look at Jeremiah. As always, in step 1, we're trying to gather some background information on the individual. So Jeremiah was referred to a literacy program by a local employment service agency. He has been laid off after working in a factory for 15 years. He would like to get a job kind of working in like a small garage, perhaps did some little bit of welding and repairing small motors. He does have his grade 12, but he's been out of school for over 10 years. He explained to the practitioner that he'd worked on a production line, so his job was very repetitive, not a lot of reading, not even a lot of talking with other workers. He did, however, use a computer station where he would have to enter production data, numbers and stuff. He felt he was a good reader, and he also felt he was quite handy with small motors and other equipment. Okay. We're continuing to gather background information. A lot of agencies over the past couple years, just as a side note, are starting to use more motivational interviewing, which helps you to get as much information as you can, and depending on how much, of course, the individual wants to disclose. We also know that Jeremiah is a single father. His son has a partner and a small baby living with him. His truck is broken down since he's been laid off, and he cannot afford to fix it. So really, he's out of transportation at the moment. Since his layoff, he's currently been on medication for anxiety and struggles with new environments and some change. Jeremiah seems to be committed and wants to attend a program to upgrade his workplace skills before he really goes out and gets a new job. So initially, the practitioner is gaining some observations while she's speaking with Jeremiah, and while they start going through the initial assessment and registration as part of intake. She noted in her notes that he needed assistance to complete the registration form. However, he kind of liked more work on his own. He was very friendly, but seemed reserved and a little bit withdrawn. He seems committed to his goals, and he would like to attend 3 half-days a week. So this is where a lot of agencies have small intake packages. So you've got an intake package that could include a release of information, a learning agreement, standards of behavior, your learning styles, inventory. Our guidelines tell us what has to be in their files. So to try and make the process a little bit more smooth, many agencies create just a small intake package so that they're not running for these different documents while the individual is there. Again, we're gathering background, their work experience, of course, the learner's style, any challenges that might prevent them, any barriers that might prevent them from coming to the program. Are they the best fit for our program? What are the supports? What do they need? Now, I know this is partially under step 1 of a goal-directed assessment process. It's what we do anyways when we're doing initial interview and assessment. So during this time, we notice that Jeremiah does have a few barriers, the transportation, and the practitioners knows of some great services and supports at a local community center that are free that could maybe help him with some issues or concerns with anxiety or family situation. So she just gave Jeremiah a brochure, and they talked about it a little bit, and he was going to think about that, and maybe they could discuss it on his next visit. Okay? So we take a look, and what do we know? What do we know so far about Jeremiah? We know his long-term goal path is employment, and we know that in the short term, what can he achieve while he's here in our program? We know he's been away from school for over 10 years. We know he has no transportation. We know that in the beginning, he would like one-to-one in a more quiet place to start. We also know his tactile learning preference. So already you're thinking in your mind, what can we give Jeremiah for assessment? Okay. We need to give Jeremiah assessment that is employment related in the employment goal path. All assessment, all activities, and all tasks are goal directed. So we could use some of the self-assessment pieces from the SCARGO and from the employment goal path. We could use the essential skills online indicators. They're leveled from 1 to 3. The essential skills are embedded right into our framework, so they can line up nicely if you take a look at document use and interpreting documents, for example. We could also use the common assessment for the OALCF goal paths that was developed here by Dryden Literacy. We're going to start thinking about where he wants to go and what kind of tasks he's going to be able to do. Okay? We want a snapshot, just a snapshot. We can't get everything all in one or two sittings. That's what ongoing assessment is for. We're going to get a snapshot of maybe any skills gaps and his strengths. We want to focus on what are his strengths to build him up for his next steps. So these are some pieces that we could pick for Jeremiah. As I said, many agencies have little intake packages that include 3 or 4 pieces of assessment. In what we do here is try to have little packages made up for each goal path. That's something that's in development. And again, we're looking for that initial snapshot. And then with the practitioner's initial interview, you're going to get a good picture of where to start. So I have some really good links here for you. The task-based activities for LBS portal. Some really great examples, activities, and tasks that you can use. The essential skill online indicators through the Employment and Social Development of Canada. The ONLC has some escargot resources up there. And of course, the common assessment for the OALCF goal paths. If we take a look at the snippets that I have on the screen, C1.1, manage money math is a great place to start because money math carries over into many other types of math tasks and functions. Multiplying, dividing, percentages, and working with fractions. Reading an email, that's a task, a message that is commonly done on the job at work. And you can see here I have a snippet from the self-assessment to the employment goal path, managed learning from the escargot. And again, the online essential skills indicators are a great little tool for the employment goal path. Okay. It's important to note here that we're also using fair assessment principles. We're using a variety of tools. We've used a few different methods, some paper copies, some self-assessment, maybe some computer, some online assessment. If your learner really likes working online, then give them a small piece of online assessment. And they'll enjoy that more, and they'll learn from it more if that's something that they want to do. We've used a little bit of skills-based, we've used some task-based, we've used informal, and we've used some formal. So we're really incorporating our adult learning principles and fair assessment practices and principles into that initial assessment. Again, our pieces are all from an employment goal path, so it's goal-directed, goal-related. Just want to take a moment here, talk a little bit about an initial assessment. All of the tasks, everything that we do is integrated. Okay, so for example, if you're doing milestone A1.1, find and use information, read continuous text, you're also going to be doing writing. Depending on the level, well, of course, that's going to depend on the complexity of the milestone. But there's also going to be some inference in there and some little bit of critical thinking. So all of the tasks are related. So the milestones, as some task-based pieces, yes, they focus on an indicator for that competency and that task group, but you are getting indicators of other competencies and other task groups. So for example, the office flyer snippet, you can see we're also getting a little look at reading continuous text under other task groups and levels. Okay, we're also getting a little indicator of interpreting documents and a little indicator of writing. in reading an email message. It also indicates some skills and knowledge in a competency B, which is writing text, and different look at a little bit of math there. The self-assessments are great to use because they identify what the learner maybe would like to learn on. You know, it's, I'm good at this, I'm not very good at this, I would like to work on this. That gives them a chance to identify things that they would like to work on and give them more control over their learning. Of course, again, task-based and skills-based, when we talk about the two things, a lot of that is going to depend on what they know now and where they want to go, and of course their goal path. The post-secondary goal path or the secondary school goal path, you may need to work on skills for a while longer because there's more skills acquisitions to be successful in that goal path than, let's say, the employment goal path or an independence, again, depending on what the learner already knows and the proficiency level at the start. But we have a good place to start here. So this is what Jeremiah's initial assessment ended up looking like. Jeremiah did take 2 sessions to complete his assessment. On his first visit, he ended up having to leave to run home for his son for a family reasons. Okay, so I really like this visual. It gives a practitioner a great overview of exactly strengths and needs for the client. We can clearly see the 3 primary competencies that Jeremiah will need to focus on in order to be successful in a new employment environment. So here we have a snapshot, and we're already thinking about what kind of tasks and activities that Jeremiah needs to do. What's great about this is it identifies the primary competencies. Competency A, find and use information. Competency B, writing continuous text. And competency C, using measures. Okay. It also identifies secondary competencies. So by primary competencies, I mean that's going to be your key focus. That's the competencies that he needs to be successful in his new environment. And secondary competencies are the ones that you could work on once you get going on the other things. Assessment is living, ongoing process. Okay, so things may come up, emerging needs, emerging skills may come up that you weren't aware of in the beginning. That's why we always plan, evaluate, and then revise. Okay, so we could also work here on B1, interacting with others, some soft skills stuff perhaps. Maybe it's speaking skills, or perhaps he just needs to learn how to work in a group of people again because he worked on his own for so many years. This is a little tool that we developed a few years back to help try and support practitioners in their file management. I like this again because you can, after your initial assessment is done, you can just type in or write in the outcome of that, and you can also use it for tracking. Ongoing assessment, of course, which would be milestones or some other indicators for that job. Exit, okay, is there exit assessment that's been completed? Sometimes with the employment goal path, they find that job, and we haven't had a chance to do exit assessment or culminating task. But that's there. And then required, and by required it could be levels required by that occupation, or it could be the levels required by the culminating task itself. if you take a look at that culminating task, the levels and the competencies and the task groups that are needed to be successful in that, it gives you a good idea of the level of proficiency that that individual is going to have for him to transition successfully. I also like this because at the bottom, the goal path, which is their long-term goal, and then their short-term goals. And this, of course, would be in increasing employability skills. You can quickly note the competencies, the primary competency that you're going to focus on, and the practitioner can write a couple little notes in here. This is also a great tool to for the consultants when they come and do file review. Okay. So now we're going to get to the point where we need to stop and think about Jeremiah's plan. What are we going to do? We have our assessment done. We know his circumstances. So what we need is more or less a strategy. A strategy identifies who, what, when, why, and how to achieve a specific goal. And in our Appendix 2, the strategy, assessment strategy to describe what tools, okay? So the what tools is our resources and our activities. For what purpose, okay? The purpose is for evaluation and assessment, the how and the where, and the why, okay? And under what circumstances is when, and that's your timelines, okay? So the assessment is conducted, and there is a process used for assessment results to inform overall agency targets. So if we just take a look reading that statements, okay? The what tools is the resources, activities, the how and the where. What purpose is the why. Why are you doing this? Why are you assessing this learner? What is it you need to assess? And under what circumstances is the when? That's all our learner plan. That's our strategy. That's what our learner plan tells us. Okay? So just to think about that, is your learner plan really is your strategy. Okay? So we're going to start taking a look at where Jeremiah wants to go. It's a goal-directed process. We're in a transitional programming. So we're going to have to take a look at where Jeremiah's got to go and the kinds of things that he needs to do. Okay, so now we're getting more into step 3 of a goal-directed process. We're assessing the requirements of the learner's goals. We have some great tools to help us do this. The first tool, the little snippet up here, the goal path descriptor for employment. Okay, it's full of sample questions that you can ask, and one of the best things in there are the key development skills. Okay, so what we did for our common assessment tool was we took those key development skill sets identified by the ministry in the goal path descriptors, and we leveled them. We also put a column in there that either a learner or a practitioner can check off what they can do already and what level they need to be proficient at, and other key knowledge and behaviors that the individual needs to be successful in their goal path. So it's a great little tool. You could take a look at types of tasks, all the skills, knowledge, and behaviors for that goal path. Okay. The last little snippet here is right from our curriculum framework. Okay, and this is competency A. Okay, reading, finding, and using information. You can see it's giving us examples here of the kind of tasks that a learner can do at the end of a level. So for example, reading a parking sign to identify restrictions, interpreting symbols, like WHMIS, reading labels, verifying information. Okay, those are all tasks that are very common in a workplace. Now, if we take a look, for example, the interpret a WHMIS symbol on a product label as an example of a task they should be able to do at the end of level 1. And we come over and we take a look at our key development skills checklist. Under document use, A2.1 interprets and understands commonly used symbols. Okay? So you can see how they're lining up here. The framework is lining up with the goal path descriptors. That's lining up with the employment goal path. Okay? Can also notice interpreting symbols on product labels, reading signs for restrictions. There are also examples of the milestones associated with competency A, finding use information, task group 2, interpreting documents. So just a little note. In Jeremiah's case, we know that he needs to work on, as well, writing continuous text. So if we look to the milestones, we can see that that's another area, good examples, but in competency B. This example is competency A. So we're getting a really good look at the types of tasks and activities that Jeremiah needs to do when he leaves the program. Okay. If we don't know the requirements of the learner's goal, how are we going to help them to get to goal completion? It's always about where does the learner want to go. Okay. Another great place to check out tasks, the types of tasks and levels that a learner may need to do in an employment situation, is the occupational essential skills and occupational profiles. So I've taken a snippet here of document use, and you can see here reading labels, shift schedules, work orders, looking at production charts, and you can see it's level 2. At the bottom, you can see there is some higher level reading there, but for Jeremiah's purposes, we're focusing on level 1, a level 2. This is from the Department of Employment and Social Development Canada website under the market labor and market reports. And I've got the link up there for you. So the occupational skills profile and essential skills profiles are also a great place to look when you're looking and trying to develop a learning plan for a learner. Okay. So we're also then going to take a look at making sure that Jeremiah has the skills and can do the tasks required before we move him up. So some examples of possible milestones that could be used is interpreting documents, say 2.1, reading product labels, C3.1, using measures, and writing continuous text. We want to ensure he has those skills and those strengths before we start giving him a different formal assessment. Okay, the levels are very broad, so in some cases he may have passed this milestone, but it doesn't have all the skill sets in it that's required for that. So you might have to choose a different milestone or other task-based activities to make sure that he has all those skills and the knowledge that he needs in his next steps. So if we kind of take a look at Jeremiah's learner plan, we see we've got learning related to communications for employment. So that would be under competency A and competency B. We can also identify some learning related to workplace math under measurement. We could identify learning related to self-advocacy, such as working as a team member, speaking skills, and other soft skills. And there could be activities related to digital technology and learning online. I've tried to come up with some sample resources that a practitioner could use to help Jeremy in his tasks. They're all great resources. The task-based activities portal, the Make Math Work, is developed by Ontario Native Literacy Coalition, and it goes into 8 different occupations, specifically math for those occupations. The Math Sense and Breakthrough to Math are great for foundational skills. For reading, the Work Right series is great tools for workplace reading and writing. GCF Learn Free is an online, and it's got some good stuff. Good Learning Anywhere has some great online courses for the employment goal path. And then I put down here, depending on what Jeremiah wants to work on, he could also, there's occupational essential skills curricula developed by some of the other networks, Leo and the Eastern Board, for skilled trades helper, if he wanted to go that path. Okay, so just an example. We want to choose activities that will build the skills and choose task-based activities that will help set them up for success at milestones. Skills acquisition will always lead to task completion. Task completion will lead to goal completion. Okay. The learner plan identifies all your program elements: tasks, activities, skills development, knowledge and behavior that the learner needs to achieve that goal. It identifies the timelines and the key indicators of progress. Key indicators means primary competencies. It also identifies your assessment strategies, the milestone selection. Your learner plan also gives you a great tool for tracking progress. It tells the story of the learner. You know, some people, some agencies are using the enhanced learner plans at CAMS. Other agencies are still using the template that was given to us in the beginning. That's personal preference or agency preference. We use the Word document that was provided to us in the beginning. It just tells the story, and practitioners can add and revise without going online or just simply writing in and then changing it later on when they've got time. Another great resource for your math is the Khan Academy, and that's an online learning site as well. Okay. Oh, I lost my, there it is. Okay. So if we take a look again, we're initially starting to develop Jeremiah's learner plan, which is step 5 in our goal-directed process. You can see that most of the work is done, or the lion's share of the work is done before we sit down to develop the plan. So we have a milestone in competency B, we have a milestone in competency C, and a milestone in competency A. I'm going to take a look at some extra activities from the task-based portal, and I've identified 2 task-based assessment pieces from the common assessment for the OCALF goal pass. Ultra foam detergent, which is competency A, and dimensions, which is competency C. And again, depending on the activity and what the indicators are, you may have to give other pieces of assessment as well to make sure that all that skills and knowledge acquisition is there. Okay. We're also taking a look at other supports that the learner is accessing. He's going to access some training support from the program and service coordination. We are going to refer him to the community center for the family services. Perhaps Jeremiah will end up taking some mental health classes and maybe receiving some extra counseling. Okay. Now, with this said, Jeremiah had built in an agency application for his training supports to make sure that he qualified. Okay, so that's another document that's going into your file, right? The practitioner also has filled in a common referral form. Out here, we use one that was developed by Literacy Northwest for the Northwest, and we try to, many of our referring agencies use it as a common referral form for formal referrals, okay? The practitioner also called the community center and let them know that Jeremiah was going to be stopping over and to ensure that Jeremiah was going to get to that referral, okay? All right. So we have our learner plan, okay? Now what does that look like? What does that look like in CAMS? Okay, so far, very rudimentary, just to give you an idea, because maybe not everyone does CAMS entry, but we now have 6 sub-goals. We have a sub-goal of learning activities, and the plan items under that are the number of activities you enter. Some agencies are only entering a couple of activities. Other agencies are entering quite a few. As practice, we here enter a few of the activities, again, depending on the length of the time they're in the program and competencies, the number of competencies they have to work on. We have another sub-goal under competency B. The plan item then is milestone 18. The third sub-goal is competency C. The plan item then is milestone 45. We also have a 4th sub-goal of competency A. Our plan item then is milestone number 8. We're also going to have a sub-goal of training support, and the plan item then will be the taxi rides. We also have a sub-goal of referral out to community agencies, and the plan item there is the referral to community center. Okay, so that's a referral during service. We're also going to tick off blended learning. We're going to try and encourage Jeremiah to take an online course through Good Learning Anywhere. All right. So I put this little visual together. You can tell I'm a very visual person, but I like it because you can see the step-up approach. The step-up approach, when you look at it like this, aligns with the 5 steps of a goal-directed assessment. And as I said, we do a lot of this anyways. But if you haven't read the foundational documents or the guide to task-based programming, I strongly encourage you to do so, just to give you that big picture, and also very specific. There's a lot of information in them. They're documents that I have read over and over and over myself. But if we take a look at the visual, we can see we've got our daily activities. What's the daily activities Jeremiah is going to be working on? What kind of tasks will he need to be doing? We're going to provide him with some task-based assessment activities. Those task-based assessment activities really help set your participant up for milestone success. Okay, they parallel the kinds of activities and skills, the knowledge that the client needs to complete that milestone. So using a task-based assessment helps to set them up for success and helps them to transfer their skills from what they're working on a daily basis to somewhat of a different situation or a different kind of task, but using those skills that they've acquired. Then we move up into our milestones. We start at a level 1. We start where they're strong. We start where their strengths are. We're setting them up for success. There's an example of some milestones there. We're going to try to move him to a level 2. Now, we all know that takes time. And again, especially on the employment goal path, sometimes we don't always have that time because they find a job. Okay? So the learner plan really, and then finally the culminating task, if they stay that long. In the job readiness culminating task, we like here, if again, the participant has enough time to stay here and work up to that culminating task. So you can see we do all the planning and then we do the delivering. We evaluate, we revise. Once we evaluate, revise, we're going to go back again. Plan, deliver, evaluate, revise. Our learning plan is a living document. We're working with living, breathing people. And our learner plan is a living, ongoing document. Okay? By answering the questions of when, how, why, what, and where, it's our content planning, the analysis of our goal path, and our delivery, which is the timelines. These are items that the learner needs to complete and be able to transition successfully. By answering those questions, what is it that the learner needs to learn? We have now created an assessment strategy or the plan for this learner. Okay? So we've finished initial assessment. We've developed a little training plan. It's been entered in CAMS. And now Jeremiah has been attending for about 8 weeks. He seems to be improving very well. He's actually even completed a well-being class over at the community center. And he's disclosed to you that even his son, his young son and daughter-in-law are accessing the services over there. So for ongoing assessment, there could be 4 more milestones. We have done milestone for competency B, writing, and identified another one for math. But we've also taken a look at competency B. Jeremiah, because of the well-being classes, is really starting to open up. He's also starting to build a network by accessing those other services and supports. He's creating a network for himself, and that is going to help him achieve his goal. Over the last 8 weeks, he also completed 2 very short online courses through Good Learn Anywhere. The first one was an introduction to online learning, and he just loved it. So he took another one on Play-Doh, which is more independent learning. Just want to note here that this is just suggestions and recommended. Perhaps another practitioner would focus on something else. And of course, it's always important to remember that emerging issues will arise. Okay? Again, as you go through and you're updating your training plan, revising your training plan, you've got to go back and update and revise your service plan. Always remember that once you've identified a milestone as complete, you activate another one. Or when CAMS is pulling data for your next service quality report, it won't pull it for that learner because it can't see that criteria is being met, that criteria is active. Okay? Just a note. So, So Jeremiah's doing all this stuff. You've got this stuff on your learning plan. This is just a little tool that I wanted to share with you for tracking. Again, you can see Sandra Altenberg developed this for the common assessment for the goal paths that we developed. And there's also another similar one out there developed by another program in Ontario. And it's a great way, great visual to see what task-based assessment they've done, what milestones that they've been focusing on, what milestones, what competencies they've been focusing on, the dates. Did they do a culminating task? Did they what was the completion date, and any referral notes. This is a great tool to put in the top of your file to just have a quick look at it. And again, it's another tool that can also help support our ETC, our ministry consultants, in taking a look at the file and how we're showing progress, how we're using task-based assessment, a task-based approach, how we are a transitional program. Okay. So Jeremiah has been attending. He has job searched a little bit along the way, but with spring coming, he'd really like to put more energy into that. Jeremiah comes to you, and he wants to go. There's some jobs opening up, and he really wants to go. He needs to get his resume updated, and he also wants to do some more serious job searching. So you talk to Jeremiah, and you bring up the culminating task, and he's more than willing to do it. Okay. So you also talk to Jeremiah about the formal referral to send him back to the employment service provider for job searching assistance and updating of his resume. You're also going to take a look at the exit form and the learner satisfaction questions for Jeremiah. So the practitioner did do a formal referral to the employment center, and Jeremiah signed that, and it was faxed over. So Jeremiah knows where that office is. I just want to note, like I said before, we don't always have the opportunity for learners to do the culminating task. Many times in the employment goal path, an opportunity comes up, and because they need that work, they go. They're successful in that. They've reached their goal, but we haven't gotten goal completion for our programming. The important thing to remember is if they can't complete the culminating task, they are leaving that program early, is to have them at least try and complete any of the milestones you have identified already, or at least an exit milestone. Answering the questions. And here in Dryden, we also have some other learner satisfaction questions that we ask upon exit. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to take a quick look at this visual. As you can, again, you can see the process. The point of entry, you've got your registration, initial assessment. Is there any support? Is there any services that client might need to help commit to the learning and the programming? You're going to do that then. You're going to identify daily activities, some tasks. Integrated tasks are tasks that, of course, involve all of the competencies. There's supplemental tasks. That's another foundation key document that MTCU provided to us. Possibly some milestones. The culminating task is our exit assessment. You can see how they move through to the point of exit. The learners reach that end task. They're ready for transition, community, and or some exit referrals. If you look at the top and compare that with our LBS program components, information and referral starts at the very beginning, at the point of entry, and also at the point of exit. Assessment, there's our three components: initial, ongoing, and exit. Learner plan development is at the very beginning and evolves and revises as we move through. The training then are your activities and tasks, exit, and then of course follow up. If we look down at the bottom and compare that to our CAMS components, registration, which includes the client summary, that's our step one. That's what we're doing. We're gathering the information that we need about that client. Oh my goodness, I have Amazee still in there. I apologize for that. I should say MTCU now with all the changes. I guess I missed that. You're going to develop their service plan, which is from your learner plan. You're going to update that along the way, which is the training along the way. And as you move through, you're going to update that. Okay? Exit, which is exit, and then of course follow up. So I just thought that was a kind of a neat way to look at things. So if we just think about what we have accomplished with Jeremiah, we had a referral in from an Employment Ontario partner. We had a referral during service to community center, and we had a referral at exit back over to the employment service. We hit suitability indicators, out of school, unemployed, and the age. Okay. We've shown progress through the activities and milestones, and we've also incorporated a little bit of blended learning in there. Okay. He's completed a customer satisfaction survey, and he's given us 4 or a 5. So we have achieved, not just Jeremiah has achieved his goals. We've achieved the steps and the criteria along the way to show success in CAMS. Okay, just a little side note there. All right. I just wanted to spend a couple of moments on common assessment strategy. Again, if we take the concept of the individual's learner plan, and that is their strategy. Their learner plan is a written, formalized strategy on how they're going to move through the program to achieve your goals. It also, describes the tools that we're going to use, when they're going to be used, for what purpose. And all of this can be incorporated into an overall agency assessment, and easily incorporated into our current practices. If you have set up a small intake package, set one up for each goal path. Then when the individuals come in, it's all right there. Very smooth, formal. You've got all the documents in place that you need to ensure that ministry requirements are being met. And you've also got, the most important thing you have is a really good picture of your new learner. I'm just going to share this sample with you guys for the employment goal path. This is a sample originally for an overall, and what we've just done from step 1 through to step 5 in the goal-directed assessment process is basically what this is. Okay, we have our initial assessment, we have some task-based, we have some skills-based, we've got some links here, some samples of resources that a program could use. If you put this together and then keep adding to it, you've got yourself a little employment goal path binder. And then an initial assessment, it becomes very smooth. Ongoing assessment, again, everybody has their favorite resources and their favorite tools. I like a lot of tools in my toolbox. I like a lot of methods and a lot of variety. Each practitioner is going to be a little different, but this just gives you that overall. So this page here really is step 1 and step 2 combined. We've got the whys and the whens. Okay. A tool like this also actually helps with training new people, like succession planning. If you put it in a common place, it's a resource for all staff, and it becomes like an internal process. It's a great way to track new resources. Oh, you really like a new resource? It's for the employment goal path. You're going to tuck it in that binder so that when a client comes in, you want to be able to use it. Again, if it's a structured, targeted programming, you have these little packages made up so that the registration and intake process becomes a little bit smoother. If it's one-on-one, and again, that's why we have ongoing assessment, because you get that initial snapshot and then you're going to move through and find out some more. So we have here ongoing assessment, again, for the employment goal path. We have some informal and formal. Again, we have some reasons why are you doing this and when ideas, okay? And then, of course, the exit, okay? And you can see here, again, I've chosen the job readiness culminating task. That really does set them up for moving into employment and job searching and the employment service provider. Okay. This, again, is another tool that I encourage managers and practitioners to look at because not everybody does scans. You're not sure of all the data and why you need it. But these are the reports that you can see. I noted earlier on about making sure you had your milestones active. And this is the, you can see in the DSQ, if it's not an active milestone, the database doesn't pick it up. The learner profile gives you great information about the kinds of participants that are coming in, and of course your case activity. Okay, so again, confidence in client referring to, do they have an active milestone or not? Okay, the inactive files, again, it's all relates back to goal completion. Okay. Oh goodness. Okay. So this is a capped. Oh goodness. This should be. Oops. I'm sorry. Okay. So this is a snippet of the Appendix 2 itself, and you can see the fully in place indicators here. Agency understands the difference between task-based and skills-based assessment. Okay. The first webinar, striking the right balance. Item 2, the agency chooses tools and methods that are appropriate. Webinar number 2, the right choice. Bullet 3, agency staff is clear about what they want to measure and choose assessment tools appropriate to their purpose, was webinar number 3, measuring progress. Bullet number 4 is tracking. All programs track learner achievement in relation to learner goals. Tracking progress was webinar number 4. And finally, the final piece for the fully in place indicator is the assessment strategy to describe what tools are used for what purpose, for which transition path, and under what circumstances the assessment is conducted, and there is a process used for assessment results to inform overall agency targets. That was number 5, putting the pieces together. And this webinar was the final overall piece, trying to bring it all together. Now, I've highlighted quite a few resources throughout this webinar and the other webinars. I just wanted to go through one more time. These are great tools. And of course, I know there's many, many more out there. These tend to be some of my favorites, and others that through talking with practitioners that they have used. Okay. The CASPA link for the escargot has been broken, so that's why I've been using the Ontario Native Literacy Coalition, their link. Okay, I'm just wondering now if anybody has any questions. I feel like I went through it fairly fast. I apologize if I went too fast. Okay, any questions or comments from anybody? Okay, I'm not hearing anything.
So far, no questions in the box yet.
Okay, thanks, Jolene. As Jolene had stated earlier on, all of the webinars are being recorded. You can go back at any time through the Northern Network's website or Literacy Northwest to view them all. And again, I just strongly encourage everyone to take another look at their foundation documents. If anybody does have some questions, they can contact myself or Dryden Literacy's practitioner, Sandra Altenberg, Anne Marie at Literacy Northwest. There's our phone numbers. There's our email addresses. I want to thank everyone. If there's no questions, we'll wait a couple more minutes. But if there is no questions, I'd like to thank you all for joining me today. I know how busy everybody's schedules are. I hope you all took away at least something new or are feeling refreshed in your work. Again, if you have any questions, please feel welcome to contact me or Anne Marie. Thank you.
We're getting a few thank yous in the question box, and
Okay.
great job that the webinar really tied everything together.
Oh, thank you. That's nice to hear. Again, I can encourage you all, just call and ask, or go back and take a look at the webinars that Sandra and I have developed over the past couple of years. Great stuff, you guys. Okay, Jolene, how are we doing?
Still no questions.
Okay, I wonder if we should say goodbye.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, then. Like I said, Jolene, thanks so much. Your cheery voice was nice to hear this morning.
Oh, well, thank you very much for being
Okay.
our presenter and being willing to put all the work into making this lovely webinar for us.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye then. I hope to talk to you all soon. Bye for now.
Okay, so if everybody just wants to exit out of the webinar, just hit the X in the corner and don't forget to fill in the evaluation questions.
Oh yes, please fill in the valuations. I forgot to mention that. Thanks, Jolene. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye then.
Okay, thanks, Wendy.